National security institutions within the United States engage climate change in actually what I characterize as three different ways. The Department of Defense is the largest energy user within the United States, which in fact makes them the largest energy user in the world. So there's a huge opportunity for mitigation just within the United States defense establishment, given the global reach, the number of transportation vehicles used, literally the amount of fuel that's used within the theaters for the wars. So there's engagement on the mitigation side. Also, adaptation is very important to security institutions because it does affect the ability of these institutions to operate. So an interesting example might be the United States Navy. The United States Navy will be called upon more likely for humanitarian assistance and disaster relief operations, let's say in the Pacific Theater. One of the issues there is that Diego Garcia, it's a base that the Navy actually leases from the British. It has an average elevation of 2 feet above sea level. So the base itself, by the end of the century, according to the Navy planning factors themselves, will be wiped out of existence. And even that will affect the mission in the sense that security institutions in the United States will be less able to respond to climate challenges. So adaptation's the second area. But the third area of engagement of U.S. security and military institutions in climate change is what's been known as sort of the strategic risk. So it's dealing with fragile states and the impacts of climate change on those states. And so whether it's a direct physical issue, a direct physical threat to the United States, is not the question. It's more the ability of allies and countries that are important to U.S. national security interests to be able to have the resilience to respond to these challenges internally. So it's a governance challenge that might affect allies' abilities to cooperate with the United States and create instability in the short run. That's inimical to sort of the global engagement of the United States. One that's become salient to me just through the course of this conference is the fact that militaries are used to longer range planning. So it's the military, in fact, that can be driving the politicians, because the politicians may have a planning cycle of 4 years. For instance, in the United States, whereas the military will look ahead and do their assessments maybe 20 or 30 years out. And another thing that I found is interesting is that the security assessments done by intelligence agencies on social political elements of climate change really do match the time horizons of the regional climate models. I think within the field of environmental security writ large, it's been tangled up for a very long time in this debate over whether climate change does cause conflict or not. So it's been looked at increasingly quantitatively, and so I think the political scientists, in a sense, are very separated from the policy community, because the political scientists say, well, securitization does not work in theory. Whereas we find that in practice there are implications. So when policymakers who are used to dealing with the realities of insecurity and fragile states on the ground are able to share their perspectives with the academic community, I think we reach some areas of commonality and some areas that reinforce both sides' work.